Hey guys, Alex from Board Game Co. here, and today we're going to talk about how to kickstart your own board game. Now there are infinite number of videos that can be made on this subject. There's a lot to go over. I'm just covering one small facet of that. Maybe in another video we'll cover another facet. But to begin with, if you're here to talk about manufacturing, art, who to outsource to, any of that stuff, that's not going to be in here, but a little bit of how to get there will be. So we're going to take it off from the top, and we're going to start with what to do number one, which is number one is get honest feedback. This is the most important thing you can do out the gate. This is the most important thing. If you ignore everything else on this list, if you don't touch a single thing on this video, reason number one, get honest feedback. When you're going to your friends, your family, your spouse, your co-workers, anyone and everyone you are using as a source of how amazing your game is, tell them that you are about to invest time, energy, money. You are actually going to be putting more of yourself, more of your monetary resources, more of your time, more of everything into making this a reality. And the worst thing they can do to you is butter you up. The worst thing they can do is tell you how amazing this game is. It cannot be a resource of information where everyone tells you what a great job you're doing. This is so much fun. I can't wait to play this. I wish this was a real game. They are going to waste your time, money, energy, and everything if they give you, buttering you up feedback. Tell people that you are having to playtest your game. Tell everyone involved that you are looking for honest opinions, because anything else is doing yourself a disservice. It is super important to get honest feedback from anyone and everyone you can. And along with this, obviously, playtest your game. Playtest your game from here till tomorrow. Understand your audience. Who are the people you're trying to sell this game to? Is this a Cards Against Humanity style game where you're kind of looking for a beer and pretzels drinking audience? Is this a heavy strategy game? Define your audience and get opinions and feedback from that audience. You cannot possibly be coming out with the next risk replacement. It's going to kill risk, it's going to destroy risk, unless you're talking to people who are playing games that have killed risk, that have destroyed risk. You need to define your audience, get feedback from that audience, and it is super critical to desire and want that critical feedback. Your art may not be up to snuff. Your gameplay mechanics might be outdated. Anything and everything about your game, there is a decent chance someone has done it better. There's a decent chance that your idea is not worth pursuing. That is the sad, harsh reality of ideas. We all have ideas. I've written the rules for 3 board games. I haven't playtested them because I don't want to spend the time or energy doing that, but anyone and everyone can create a content. Content is not hard to get. Good content is hard to get. By definition, most ideas are below average. That's just by definition. Well, actually not true. A decent amount of ideas are below average, but if you're talking about being the cream of the crop, most things will not be cream of the crop. Most things will not stand out from the rest. It is important that you get honest feedback from everyone you're interacting with. That is point number one, reason number one, tip number one. Everything else is kind of gravy on top of that. This is super important. I can't tell you the amount of times you see a game that clearly either everyone the person was associating with was ill-equipped to give good feedback, or they were lying because they didn't want to say your game's not good enough. I have been in the unfortunate position in the past of having to tell people your game's not good enough, but it's a reality, and you can deliver that feedback well. You don't have to ask for a beating. You can say, listen, I just want your opinion. Obviously, if your opinion is negative and other people's opinions are fine, my ego's totally fine. If everyone's opinion is negative, then I shouldn't be producing this game. So every data point is relevant. It's not a personal thing, it's not an attack, it's just acquiring more and more genuine feedback about whether your idea is worth pursuing. Tip number 2. Look at other Kickstarters. Find Kickstarters in your genre. Again, whatever type of game you're producing, there has been a Kickstarter that has done a game in that general style. Find the Kickstarters that have done well in that genre, and just as importantly, find the Kickstarters that have failed. Which one is yours going to be more like? Are you putting out a Kickstarter with an incredible, amazing game, but no graphic design on the Kickstarter page? How well have other Kickstarters done who did that? It doesn't matter how much of a gem your idea is if you can't convince people to put money into creating it. So you have to figure out what has worked for other Kickstarters in your genre, what hasn't. There is no perfect formula. It doesn't mean that if you put out the exact copy of a successful Kickstarter, you're going to achieve success. But it certainly is a closer, a more a better reason why you might. It's certainly a factor, one amongst many, and it shouldn't be the only thing that you have going on with your game, but it should be something you're doing. Look at other Kickstarter games, figure out which Kickstarter genre is most similar to your own game, and then model what you're going to do after the successful ones, and avoid like the plague what's going on in the unsuccessful ones. People have done this before. You don't need to be the first person learning today that if you put out a crappy Kickstarter, you're gonna get, $5 from your mother and $1 from some other person in Arkansas and who knows what. This is not, you're not reinventing anything here. You're not reinventing the wheel. Do what has worked and ignore what has not worked. Tip number 3 is building an audience. It is super, super important to build your audience months in advance, absolutely months in advance, 6 months if not more, because it is not going to happen that over a 14-day period or however long your Kickstarter is, it's just not going to happen that enough people are going to discover your project and determine its greatness just because of that. And you see all these Kickstarters with like, funded in the first 30 minutes, funded in the first 2 hours, and there's a reason for that. Those things build up traction. Nobody wants to back a Kickstarter that looks like it's dead on arrival. Nobody wants to invest into something that looks like nobody else has decided was worth it. People love opinions. People are a huge fan of opinions. That's why a channel like mine is able to exist. It's why I watch other people's channels. Everyone likes to have an opinion. It's something to bounce off of. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but it's a starting point to the conversation. And a Kickstarter that has no one backing it is dead on arrival. A Kickstarter that has no interest is not going to suddenly accumulate a ton of interest just out of nowhere in a small period of time. What a lot of successful Kickstarters have done, most successful board game Kickstarters have built an audience months and months and months in advance. They start by going onto various gaming groups, various Facebook groups, Board Game Geek, whatever forum you're on. You start showing people your graphics of your game, showing people ideas, you interact with people, then you start a Facebook page, you start inviting people to that, you build an audience, you give people a reason, maybe there's a mailing list and a Kickstarter award that will come if you get the email, a Kickstarter day one backer. There's so many things you can do, but by the time you hit launch in that Kickstarter, you should have a fan base. It's hard to know how much of that fan base will and won't actually back, and maybe it's something you can actually ask them. You can ask your fan base, you can send out questionnaires. Hey guys, I love that you're in this Facebook group. I love that you're a fan of this game. I just out of curiosity, the price point's going to be X, and will you back it? If we launch this, what do you think the chances are you'll back it? Give them a Google form. Keep it all private. The information's hidden. People people rightfully don't want to trash a game to your face and won't want to answer that very honestly in public, but if you put an anonymous Google form and a little link to your audience, you'll get a good feel for what the actual demand for your game is. Congratulations, they liked your Facebook page. Are they willing to shell out $60 for your game? It's a different conversation. It's a different discussion as to the success of your baby, of whether it's going to do well or not. So establish that audience, build it up months in advance, and then communicate with them to see if they will actually spend money on your game. It doesn't matter how much they like your game in theory if they're not spending money on it. So build that audience. It is an absolutely huge, huge requirement for being a successful board game Kickstarter. Tip number 4 is speak to other creators in the industry. Find other smaller creators. Obviously, if you're a first-time creator, you're not going to be able to sit down and have a meeting with Monolith or Simon or whoever, but find other smaller creators who've done small projects, who've struggled, who've hopefully succeeded, who've managed to actually get somewhere, and speak to them. Find out, what have you done? This is the part I referenced earlier. This is where you can actually find out what have they done for manufacturing. If you're making a miniature-based game, speak to a smaller miniature creator. If you're making more of a card standard game, speak to someone who's done a game like that. Find other smaller creators who have built and designed and successfully kickstarted games in your genre, and see if you can speak to them. Thankfully, this is a very nice hobby. It's a very welcoming hobby. For the most part, people are pretty happy to help out. People are not so wary of, oh no, if he successfully kickstarts a game, then I'm in trouble. Generally, people are happy to help out. You want to kind of keep your questions to a minimum, though. You don't want to sit there and exhaust somebody with tons and tons and tons of information, because then it makes it harder to actually interact. But even if you just say, hey, I have 5 quick questions I want to go over with you, and you can speak to different people, or maybe you can even pay them for the time or offer them a cup of coffee or something, but figure out a way to get that knowledge from somebody who has done this, so you don't have to figure out which factory in China does and doesn't produce decent quality components. You shouldn't have to learn that and then possibly fail as a result. You can speak to people who have done that. Like I said earlier, nobody's reinventing the wheel here. Find people who have figured out a pathway through the jungle and talk to them. Get their advice, get their opinion, get their map. There's no reason to do this on your own. There's no reason to try to learn things that have been learned already. There's absolutely no reason. Speak to other creators. Reason number 5, tip number 5 is offer a reason to back. Now, this is something I cover a lot in my videos. At the end of the day, when you put out a Kickstarter, how and why people spend their money is up to them. There will always be people who have enough either desire to support the creator or possibly FOMO or whatever it is that they will back your game regardless, assuming it's a good looking game or it gives a reason to back. But a big one, because you'll lose a lot of your audience if you don't provide a real incentive to back. And a real incentives can come in a variety of ways, and realistically offer at least one, but the more you offer, the better. Those incentives can come from getting the game sooner than the consumer will get otherwise, this is more of a problem for established companies like CMON and Mythic, who have clear retail distribution partners set up. For yourself, for you starting a Kickstarter, this will probably happen almost on its own, that your game probably won't go to retail before they get it, but that's a reason. Offer them incentive. Hey, guys, if this game even goes to retail at all, it won't be hitting retail for months until after your copies have gotten here. So timeline's a potential reason. Price is a good reason. You can sit there and offer an incentive and say, hey, your price will be cheaper. This is how much we're going to make if we do a retail. We're going to offer you this price less X. Now, this is always a trickier one because of shipping. Unfortunately, shipping costs being what they are, it's going to be very hard to give them a very good reason to back in terms of saving price, but you can at least make it comparable or make it look better before you account for shipping. That can help. Number 3 is if you make a game Kickstarter exclusive. I don't necessarily recommend this. In fact, I'd be very wary of it, because by making a game Kickstarter exclusive, you can have a hit on your hands, and then you either have to lie to your backers and change your mind and go to retail, or you cut off an entire source of revenue by having a successful game not go to retail. So that's a very dangerous one. I'd be very cautious about doing that, but hey, it's a possibility. If a game is Kickstarter exclusive, it is a reason to back. Foundations of Rome, that recently launched this past year on Kickstarter, was Kickstarter exclusive. I didn't back it in the end, but I was tempted to because it was Kickstarter exclusive. It is a good incentive to get people to spend your money on your game because of FOMO, fear of missing out. They will be concerned that they won't get it otherwise. Alternatively, and this is the one I'm a huge fan of personally, but offer Kickstarter exclusive items in your game. It doesn't have to be the whole game is Kickstarter exclusive, but there could be Kickstarter exclusive perks to backing the game. Now, those could be gameplay related. A lot of people will not like that. That is the nature of the beast. It could be not gameplay related. It could be game trays inserts. It could be better level of components, box art, box design. It could be any number of different things. Different people will care more than others in different ways, but you will never be able to make everyone happy. That is the nature of the beast. You won't be able to make me happy all the time. You won't be able to make other people happy all the time. It's just the nature. Different people have different things that drive them, that motivate them, and the things that you do that will make someone else a better backer or a more incentivized backer will push someone else away from your game. You look at any CMON Kickstarter, and there's a dozen people, dozens, hundreds of people saying, I want more optional buys, bring them on, and other people saying, if you put out another optional buy, I'm dropping my pledge. You will never be able to make everyone happy, but at least find a segment and make that segment happy. Find a driving force for some portion of the people who are backing your game and make them happy. You don't have to make everyone happy. You never will. That's just life. Get over it. But find a reason to incentivize backers. So once again, just a quick recap of those 5 reasons. Number 1, and most importantly, get honest feedback. Crave honest feedback. Pay people to give you critiques of your game if you need to. If every single thing you get back from people is sunshine and roses, happiness, whatever, offer a monetary incentive to tell you what kind of crap your game is. It will help. You need to. Nothing's good out the gate. You got to work on it. Number 2 is look at other Kickstarters in your genre, learn from them. Figure out what has worked, what hasn't worked. Number 3, build an audience. This is super important. Honestly, 1 and 3 are probably the most important reasons on this list. Build an audience months before and make sure that by the time you hit launch, there are people ready to back your game. On day 1, this has to be a thing. Number 4 is speak to other creators. Learn from them. Acquire their knowledge. Make sure to be grateful about it. You're not trying to be a sleaze here. You're not trying to steal from them, but be a part of the industry. And make sure to pass that on too when you have a successful Kickstarter, by the way. When you've learned from another creator, when you've talked them and you've gathered information from them, and 6 years from now someone else is asking you for advice, remember that once upon a time you were asking other people for advice. Be part of the chain and don't be just a giver or taker, be both. And finally, tip number 5, offer a reason to back. Your Kickstarter has to give people a reason to back the game. Otherwise, you're just hoping to get enough people who happen to support, who happen to want to see you do well, which is a segment. But you may as well, again, don't be just a taker. Be a giver and a taker. I'm going to give you X for backing my game, and I want you to back my game. I want your money. That's the taking part. But I'll give you this incentive to back the game. Make it a mutually beneficial relationship, both with your backers and with the people you talk to. I hope this video has been helpful. If you ever do launch that Kickstarter, go ahead and shoot me a link on YouTube. Comment on this video, tell me the Kickstarter. I'll take a look, give it a look over my feedback, which you may not like. Just a heads up, I'm fairly honest with my feedback, but that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this video. This video has been brought to you by Board Game Co. I'm Alex. I run Board Game Co. You can subscribe to this video down below. You can ring the bell for notifications to get notified when I put out new content. You can like this video, comment, engage. Love talking to you guys. It's always a blast. Other than that, you can head to our website, boardgameco.com, buy a game, trade games with us. You can sell us your games. We're both a retailer and just a general lover of the hobby and constant YouTube videos and all that stuff. Until next time, have a good one.